This is part two to the story of how we met, specifically us meeting in person and then us dating. So if you haven't listened to part one yet, do that first and then come back. Hi, everyone. My name's Sophia.
My name is Hank.
And welcome to You Know Me So Well. Today we are doing the part two of how we met. And this time we're talking about the week leading up to us meeting in person and then us meeting in person and then when we started dating. So, should be exciting. So, there was a lot of anticipation building because we kind of knew at this point that it was gonna happen. I guess we didn't really know when, but we knew. We'd been talking about it, we'd been getting excited. And I remember telling all of my friends about this. Specifically, I was hanging out with my high school best friend that week, and I was just telling her all about Hank and the conversations we've been having, what I anticipate will happen. And of course, I was sharing that I wanted a relationship, I think. I was hoping that would come out of it, but I was really uncertain whether that would actually happen, and I was trying not to jinx it. So there was just a lot of anticipation building up, and I don't know, I just remember being very excited but also nervous.
Yeah, that's about how I felt too.
In that time, Hank moved to LA.
Yeah.
Oh, also, fun fact, this one definitely was supposed to go in the other episode, but Hank didn't have a place to live for the longest time. And so, towards the end of December, shortly before he was supposed to move to LA, he was sending me these places and he was like, "What do you think about this place? Do you like it?" I was like, "Why am I helping you decide where you're going to live? This is so weird." But yeah, that was a little fun fact.
You did. The place you chose is where I ended up living. The week before we hung out for the first time is when my parents came with me and helped me move all my things out and helped me get all settled in my apartment. And I really was not doing anything for that first week. Because if I remember correctly, I didn't even start school till the week after. And so I was really just kind of hanging out, doing absolutely nothing. And I didn't have any furniture or anything. I just had my bed in my room. And then all my stuff was on the floor. And I was panicking all week because my furniture delivery was supposed to come on Friday or Saturday. And I had wanted to hang out with Sophia on Friday. And I was like, oh, if she walks in here and there's no furniture, it's gonna be terrible. I cannot show myself like this in front of her. So luckily I ended up getting my furniture on Friday and she came into actually a full room.
Also, I don't remember when this was, but I'm gonna guess it was in the week leading up. He sent me this text, and he was like, not to be sentimental or anything, but I'm actually really excited for you to be here.
I remember the exact text. It was like my second day in LA and you asked how I was adjusting being away from my family for the first time. And I was like, it's
Little
not
baby bird flying out of his nest.
and I was like, it's not too bad. I'm settling in and I was like not to be all sentimental or anything, but the excitement of seeing you is kind of helping me settle in a little bit and
Yeah.
not be so nervous.
So yeah, I was at home at this time. I wasn't in LA. And so, okay, essentially there was this COVID spike and no one really knew whether we were going to start school in person or online. But UCLA hadn't told us anything yet. So I was supposed to move in on a Friday. And I was convinced that I had to be there on that day in order to move in. And so I really didn't want to leave home. But I kept telling my parents, I was like, I have to, they were like, just stay back, stay back a couple of days, see what happens, whatever. And I was like, no, 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 I have to go. My move in date is tomorrow, whatever. I cried for 4 hours. It was not great. But actually, the main reason why I ended up flying out on Friday instead of waiting is because Hank and I had already made plans probably earlier on Thursday. And yeah, we had already planned to see each other on Friday night. And I was like, I just have to go. It's been a long time coming. I have to do it. So
I remember when we were talking about it, I was like, wait, are you coming back Friday or Saturday? And she was like, I'm thinking about staying till Saturday. And I responded back like, oh, all right, it's cool. And she was like, wait, say what you wanted to say, because whatever you say could determine if I come back on Friday.
Yeah, I think it was like a big driving factor for me coming back because besides that, I really, really didn't want to go back. So yeah, so Friday, I hop onto the plane in the morning. I make it to LA like midday. And literally the moment I got off the plane, I got an email from UCLA and they were like, we're going to be like virtual, like we're doing virtual classes until like, I don't know, like for at least 2 weeks, but I think it was like longer. And I was like, oh my God, yay. Like, that's so exciting that I just flew all the way across the country to go back to school. And school isn't even happening. And also, it was like, I didn't even have to move in at that point. They were like, you can move in whenever, right? So I was like, great. Okay. So I got to campus. I had to do like a COVID test to like check in. I moved in. Well, I essentially just showed up back at my dorm. My roommate was there and we talked for a while. And she was like, yeah, like honestly, I'm thinking going back home. And I was like, same, same. Like I just got here, but I am thinking of going back home as well because I don't know what I'm going to do here for the next like 2 weeks. And then after that, I met up with someone and we went to Target and like I grabbed a couple of stuff. Like, oh, I'd asked Hank what his favorite color was because I was gonna wear like nail polish and I was gonna do it in his favorite color, but it was red. And I like started painting my nails and I was like, this is horrible. I cannot wear red nail polish. So I took it off. But yeah, I did that. Oh, I made this like fun little concoction. It was pineapple juice and cranberry juice. I've been seeing it all over TikTok. Truly horrible, but me and my friend were like sitting in her dorm, like downing it because TikTok had convinced me that's what you do. So yeah, so I got a couple stuff. I hung out with my friend for a while, and there's this iconic picture that was taken on her disposable camera and it's me like because of course I was like freaking out, you know, like we were getting closer to the time where I was going to see him and I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like what did I get myself into? I cannot believe that I actually like said yes to seeing him. And so yeah, there's this photo of me just like laying face down on the floor, so that was good. But yeah, so then at some point I went back to my dorm, I showered, I shaved, like I got all ready. And we were supposed to meet a little earlier, but I wanted to talk to my parents about coming back home. So we only ended up meeting at 8. And I think I'm forever just slightly a little mad that you didn't take me on a date. But it's okay. I was still in awe because while I was getting ready, he sent me a text and he was like, "What kind of sushi do you like?" And I was like, "Oh, Jesus, like really?" Cuz okay, at this point in my life, I hated like romantic stuff. Like it was always just a little weird to me. And so the idea of like you getting us sushi was like already like it was like as bad as a date would be. Like anyways, I was like, I like anything with sauce. So that was that.
Something I remember is the night before we were supposed to hang out for the first time. The Weekend dropped Don FM, and it had this song called "Is There Someone Else" on there, and I was like, "Wow, this song's incredible." So I screenshotted it and posted it to my Instagram story. And I didn't notice until we met up for the first time, but she thought that it was my way of subliminally asking her if there was someone else in her life that I had to be concerned about.
I just like was like when he posted it on his story and I saw it, I was like deep diving. I was like, is this like a cryptic message? Like, should I be worried? You know, like it's like so stupid, but I don't know. Because obviously, I'm not with the times. I didn't know that this just got dropped. So,
But anyways, so the day leading up to it, I quite honestly don't think I did anything. I woke up, some people came and helped me move my furniture in, so that all got done. Then I think I just went to the gym, came home, showered and got ready, and then that's honestly all I really remember about the day. That whole week leading up to it, I really was just kind of doing nothing. So then between like 7:15, 7:30, I drove to her and ironically was listening to Dawn FM the whole way there. And the whole time I was thinking like this is really surreal. Like I don't know, like is this actually happening right now? Like it felt really weird. And then also it felt really weird when I got there and parked and I had to like describe what my car
oh
was and like
yeah,
I was like, "Oh, I have a Utah license plate." Like it was really weird.
yeah. It was just like everything felt so strange.
Yeah.
Um,
Like after months of build up, it actually happening was like
I think I was just trying so hard not to like run away. Like I was like, what am I doing?
Right.
But yeah, like at some point he was like, I'm here. And I was like, oh gosh, okay, all right. Okay, just get yourself together, like whatever. Other thing is, I had planned to spend the whole weekend there. We never talked about this, but I just in my mind was like, I have this weekend. I'm not doing anything with this weekend. We're about to meet up. Like, I'm gonna just spend the whole weekend there. So I like packed my bag. I, put all my weekend stuff in there, whatever. It was just one bag, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because later on I would bring like 2-3 bags. Like I would
Bring
bring
like
like
whole like
yeah,
suitcase.
exactly. Like, half of my closet was just showing up at Hank's apartment. But yeah, so like I packed my bag and all that. And when I showed up, he was like, "Why do you have a bag?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just some of my stuff." And he was like, "Okay," like he didn't ask anything. And I think I just like expected that he thought maybe this was gonna happen too. But anyways, so yeah, so I guess like I walk up, I get in, and now all of a sudden now we're looking at each other
It was very
in person.
it was really weird to like be I like didn't know how to act.
Yeah,
Like
me neither. The whole like 30-minute car ride back to his apartment, I could not look at him. Like, eyes straight on the road, not turning. Like, I felt so, I probably was like so nervous inside and just like, yeah.
me too. The whole time I was driving home, I was like, can I like touch her? Should I like hold her hand? Like what? Like I was like, what should I do right now? Like is it weird if I don't touch her? Is it weird if I touch her? Like the whole thing was just awkward.
Yeah, it was such a strange, I don't, like, what did we talk about? No one knows.
We just talked about the most random stuff,
Yeah,
I
like we were
think.
just kind of like trying to make conversation. I don't think we were doing.
Oh, and another thing is I have such a hard time seeing at night without my glasses on. It's just FYI. And I found this out because when I was driving with my permit for the first time and I drove during the night without my glasses, I was like almost swerving into like the other lane and stuff. But anyways, I go to pick Sophia up and I'm like, she cannot see me in my glasses. I was like, it's so embarrassing. Like, I'm gonna look ugly. I have to like try to look good. And so I was just straight up, having to focus so hard driving home in order to not crash the car.
Yeah, so then we get to his apartment and he lived on the second floor, so we had to like climb up the stairs and then go into the apartment. And I just like went straight to his room. Like I went straight to his room, put my bag down and proceeded to lay on the floor. Oh,
We got s'mores first. I had s'mores in the oven that I had prepared for us. And so
that
we stopped in the
that's true.
kitchen.
Yeah, so we stopped in the kitchen and he was like, I made you s'mores. And I was like, what? Like, why did you make me s'mores? That's so random. And then he was like, remember, like, back in July, like, I told you I was going to make you s'mores. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't remember that whatsoever. I felt so awkward. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But, like, I have no memory of that conversation. I mean, like, once he told me, I was like, oh, wait, now I remember. But
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be something like really cute, and then
it was cute. I just didn't get it at first. Like you had to explain it. So yeah, but the best part of these s'mores is that he baked them in the oven. He had a gas stove, with a gas stove you just like you put it on a fork, you put the marshmallow on a fork, you light up the stove and you start like roasting it. No, he put it in the oven. Why?
well, I didn't think about how I could have just roasted it on the gas stove, and so I looked up ways to make s'mores without. And I remember I was texting my friend the day of, and I was like, "Dude, I have to figure out how to make these s'mores. Like, I actually have to." And he was like, "Oh man, I really have no idea." And the internet told me to just make them in the oven, so that's what I did.
Men. Anyways, so yeah, and then he like, because he had it on like a sheet pan, so he took the sheet pan and brought it into the room, and it proceeded to lay. We never ate the s'mores.
Didn't we try one eventually?
Yeah, maybe, but we didn't eat them for the longest time. Like they were just laying on the floor for days, and yeah, it was like an accessory. But yeah, so I just like after that, I went straight into the room, put my bag down, proceeded to lay on the floor. I think
Yeah.
the floor is my, or maybe not so much anymore, but it used to be my like comfort object, given the fact that I started the day with laying on the floor and ended it with laying on the floor. And Hank is like, why are you laying on the floor? Like, there's just like bed right there, you know? Like, do you want to lay in the bed? I was like, no, I'm okay. Like, this is great. You know, like obviously so awkward. Like I could not anticipate what his next move was going to be. So eventually he comes down to the floor and just starts making out with me. And I was like, okay, here we go. All right, this is happening. So we did that, and then eventually I finally got off the floor and we got onto the bed, and he was like, okay, like, do you want the sushi? And I don't know why, but for some reason, probably because I was just like so nervous and all that, like I was really not feeling food. Like I just didn't want to eat. And so, but he was like, you have to eat. And I was like, no, like I'm okay. Like I really don't want to. So he brings the sushi, and I think I maybe had like, I don't know. I don't think I really ate it. I might have eaten a couple. And then I was like, okay, thank you. This was nice. And then at some point around this time, I would guess, I announced that I was going to be spending the weekend. And he was like, oh, like I just thought I was going to drop you off at the end of the night. It was already like 9, maybe 10 o'clock at this point. And I was like, why? Like, why did you think that was going to happen? Like, it only makes sense for me to sleep over. And I was like, should I go home? Like, do you want me to go home? He's like, no, like, you should stay. So, yeah, I ended up staying the whole weekend, where I guess we went to bed eventually, fell asleep, woke up, spent a lot of time just like laying in bed. We'd watch like YouTube, watched a lot of YouTube. Did we watch any like shows?
We would watch New Girl. We would watch Cody Co.
Girl Defined.
Yeah, the Girl
Yeah.
Defined episodes.
It was so funny because the Girl Defined, like we were watching a Girl Defined episode, and at some point I like just like made a joke about it, and like it was like I was really like reaching out of my comfort zone, because usually when I'm around someone new, like I just try and conform to like be as normal as possible, but like I was sort of like breaching that. And I don't know, like I think in that moment I just like felt, I started to feel very comfortable. I was like, wow, like I can just do this. Like I feel comfortable doing this, and that says a lot. And it just like the more time we spent together, and like the more we did, and we were like laughing at the stuff that we were watching, and we were just having a good time, like it just felt really comforting. And that was like the big thing, because I think we had really great conversations like over text, but we had no clue what it was going to be like when we met up in person. And it was really scary, because it's like if we don't feel like we're compatible in the same space, then like that's not going to work out for us. And clearly we were both kind of like hoping that a relationship would come out of it. So, but yeah, it was a good time. We went, at some point we finally like got up and got ready for the day, and we like walked to this taco place.
Yeah, the taco place.
Yeah, we walked there, and like he was like holding my hand, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, what is going on? Because also, I think one thing to note for me, like I don't know if I mentioned this in the last episode, but like this is my first relationship, and so I hadn't had like a lot of romantic experience or romantic moments prior to this. So a lot of it was like pretty new, and it was all kind of weird, like falling asleep, like cuddling. That was like, okay, like what is this? You know, holding hands, like any kind of like PDA, like it was just all so new and strange. And like I'm still very like uncomfy about PDA and stuff like that. Sometimes like when I now Hank goes to the gym in the morning, and I meet up with him before my classes, and like when we say goodbye, I'll be like, all right, fist bump, bye, it was so nice knowing you. like I'm just kind of awkward about it. So it was definitely like a very weird experience trying to like acclimate to that. We went to Target at some point too. We went to Trader Joe's, and I was like, wow, this is very like coupley of us, because we weren't dating, you know, like we were just kind of together hanging out, and I was like, this is so strange. Other thing, oh my god, I totally forgot about this. Other thing, I had, you know, told a bunch of friends about this, and like it was the big anticipated moment, And everyone was like, you have to like let us know how it goes. So I ended up creating a private story where I put everyone who had asked to like be updated on my life throughout the weekend. I put them on there and I just posted a ton of different stories, like updating them, telling them about what's happening, like all that. And there's just so much. Like when we went to Target, Hank paid $20 for parking, even though you can get it validated at Target. And I was like, what in the world? So I was like, took a picture and I was like, sugar daddy vibes. And I also, it was funny because like, so usually I would feel really uncomfortable if like a guy, like before this, like I generally would feel really uncomfortable like when I went on a date and like the guy would be like, okay, I'll pay for us. Like I'd be like, no, 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 I'm splitting it. But like I was totally banking off of Hank. Like I was just letting him be and doing everything. And I was just there and I was like, this is so nice. Like, my gosh, what is my life right now? So yeah, so that was sort of what our weekend looked like, and by the end I think we were just like really like comfortable and stuff like that. At some point Hank got a bloody nose and it got all over me.
Right. It
So
happened for some reason. We were making out, and for some reason, I just got a bloody nose. And I didn't know at first until I was like, wait, something feels weird. And so I like pull back and touch my nose, and then I look at her face too.
just
I'm
blood
like,
all
oh,
over my face.
I'm like, this is so embarrassing.
So yeah, that was like what our weekend looked like. It was very, we spent a lot of time just like in bed at his, which we would be like a common theme going into our relationship. We're so different now. But
But
anyways,
like the first, kind of like just off of what you said, like the first night was like kind of awkward at times. Like it seemed like we didn't completely know how to adjust from being like a text relationship to like actually like seeing each other for the first time. But like starting the next day, it became very comfortable very quickly. Like
yeah.
it was a quick adjustment.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me was just like because I felt so comfortable, I was like, okay, there's something here. Like this works. Because I am the type of person who generally feels very uncomfortable around new people for like a good while. So then on like Saturday night, Hank was like, so like, what is like, what is this? Like, he was like, what's going on here? Like, do you want to be in a relationship? And I was like,
Well, because we had talked about beforehand, we were like, well, depending on how it goes, she was like, a relationship is something that I would like be interested in. Like that was a whole conversation that we kind of had a while back, and so I guess I wanted a progress report so
wanted
far.
a progress
Yeah,
report.
progress report.
And like I just didn't like obviously I felt really comfortable and I like it I was definitely leaning towards it, but I didn't want to just like jump into the decision. So I was like, give me a couple of days. So we just kept hanging out. Then on Monday morning, I had like an interview for something, and so at some point Hank like dropped me off, and I went back to campus, and I was like, seeing people, and the whole intention was, because of course my class like at this point I think we started school, and all of my classes were online, so I was kind of just like in my dorm, like hanging out. My roommate had left, like I was just by myself, I'm pretty sure. And so I had intended to not see him until the end of the week. I didn't have Friday classes, so I was like, you can come pick me up on Thursday and we can hang out again. But I'd also been like thinking about going home, so it was like, we'll see what happens. So I wasn't supposed to see him. Monday goes by, Tuesday comes around, and I'm like, wow, I really like miss him. Like, this is so weird. And that honestly, like at that point, I think like by Tuesday, I kind of was like, okay, I do want to make this official. Like, I clearly feel very comfortable. I miss him. Like, I want to be with him, like the whole thing. But I didn't want to do it over text. So I was like, okay, like I just have to wait. And it was like really hard waiting. Like, I was like, I just want to get into it and be like,
Well, and another thing that we had talked about that was maybe a hesitation is you hadn't like decided for sure, but you were pretty sure that you were gonna go home for like maybe a month plus. And so you were like, well, I don't know if I like want to hop into a relationship and then have it be long distance for the first month, you
yeah.
know?
So, anyways, it's like Tuesday evening, and we're living our separate lives. And then Hank is like, "Yeah, like I'm sick," and I'm like,
I
"Oh,
was very sick.
that's so cute of you." Like, No. I was like, "Oh, like I wish I could be there to take care of you." And he was like, "Yeah, like I mean, I can come pick you up." And I was like, "Oh, what? Wait, really?" Like I didn't expect him to just be like, "Yeah, like I'll just hop into the car and come get you," you know? And so I was like, "Should I do this? Like, should I wait? Like what should I do?" But I was like, "I just need to like make this official. Like I cannot keep sitting here just like waiting for it to happen." So I was like, okay, yeah, like you can come get me at like this and this time. And so like I got ready, I packed my bag, and he picks me up, whatever, like we drive back, and then like we get to his, and it's like pretty late at this point. And I look at him and I'm like, okay, how would you feel if like we got into a relationship and then we went long distance? And he was like, yeah, like sure. And then I was like, okay, cool, we're dating. And I held out my hand and we shook hands. And that was the start of a relationship.
Yeah. January 11th.
January 11th. And then I ended up spending the next 6 days at his. Yeah. So Wednesday was Wednesday. I don't know what happened on Wednesday. Thursday, we went on our first like technically date, I guess. So while I was still at home before we had met up, he was like, "Do you like?" He was like, "You don't have to say yes to this, or like you can say no, but like, do you want to come see the Penguins like, you know, play on this and this date?" And I was like, "Oh, I hate sports." No, I was like, okay, yeah, like I, why not? It's like something to do. We get to do it together. So we had that on Thursday, and he made me wear a jersey, which I was like kind of adamant about, or he was adamant about, but I was not really into. But I was like, okay, whatever. Like when you're really in love with someone and like you just like started dating, like you'll do anything for them. So, and then he realized I was a nightmare, but
Shut up.
so yeah, so we did that. I guess it was like our technically first date, but I don't know if we considered it that. It was more of like just us doing something.
And the Penguins got smacked, which is so embarrassing for me. Because I'm from Pittsburgh, so I'm a Penguins fan, and we watched them play in LA. And I remember like the way there, I was like really gassing up like Pittsburgh and like the Penguins. I was like, oh, we're like the best franchise in the league. We're so good. And like Pittsburgh is just like part of who I am. And then we went and just watched them get demolished. It was truly embarrassing for me.
Yeah, and then the next day, I had set up like the moment me and Hank started dating. I don't know when we did this, but at some point, like I had set up a double date with my friend and her boyfriend. They were like a long distance couple and they'd been dating for over a year at this point. So they were like way ahead of us. So we went on this double date and it was just so interesting because it was like two different worlds. We were like kind of like I think they were at some point they were like walking ahead of us and like they were, just like blabbering on about whatever they were talking about. And we were just kind of like quietly like looking at each other and we were like, do you think we're ever going to get to that point? Like,
And we most certainly
and we
did.
did. We absolutely did. But it was just so weird, because like we were so new. We were like a little like baby, little newborn baby out of the
Yeah,
womb.
right. We were comfortable with each other, but we couldn't just like act like a complete fool in front of each other yet.
Yeah. Yeah. There was
That had to
still,
take time.
yeah. And like we sat like through the dinner and it was just interesting to observe like them because they were just really in their element and we were just kind of there, we were just there existing. And then, oh, other thing is, Hank, literally the day after we started dating, Hank was like, I ordered your Valentine's Day present. And I was like, what in the world? Like, hello? And so then, of course, I was like freaking out and like I was texting my friend and I was like, what do I get this man for Valentine's Day? But anyways, okay. Then the other thing is I guess when we started dating, he was like, I want to take you on a nice date. And so he was like looking around for different like places to go in LA, like dinner spots. And he took me to this place called Firefly.
A really cool place, actually.
I didn't think it was really anything special, but it was like it was interesting because Also, something tells me by this time we'd done a couple of back and forths between the UCLA campus and your apartment because
Yeah, we have.
obviously when I packed my bags on Tuesday to go be with him, like I didn't anticipate that I was going to spend the next couple of days, you
Right.
know. So we did a couple back and forths. And so yeah, so we went on this date and that's how Hank, well, that and a couple more things. That's how Hank got the reputation of taking me on really expensive dinner dates. It was interesting. So we went on this dinner date, and this is like our first like proper date. You know, it's just the two of us. We're sitting there. There's nothing to entertain us. Like we have to entertain each other. And Hank goes,
Let me just preface this by saying it's not my finest. My finest moment. I was kind of uncomfortable. I didn't really know what to
yeah,
bring
like
up.
I don't think we really had much to talk about, you know, especially because we've been hanging out for like a while. And so he's like telling me about all of his like mental illnesses. Like he's going through the like ringer, and I'm like, okay, totally. And then he goes, so what are your mental illnesses? And
This is not my finest moment.
I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I guess that's a question. Then the next day, oh, I think like in between these days, I also started introducing him to some of my friends. Yeah, so like when we would go to the UCLA campus, we'd like hang out with some of my friends, and you know they got to meet him. I then on Sunday we went back to campus, and I packed up my suitcase, and he said hi to some of my other friends. And on Monday, I got on a plane to go back home. And then we did a little long distance period. Oh, another thing is I kept making this joke, like when we went to the Trader Joe's, and I'm sure we went to the grocery store after that too. I kept making this joke where I was like, "Oh my gosh, flowers! Like, it'd be so nice to get them." And he was like, "Yeah, it would." And so when I went home, he sent me flowers, and it was so embarrassing because it's like the flowers just showed up at my door, and my parents were like, "What is this?" And I was like, he sent me flowers. I don't know. I was like, why did you have to embarrass me in front of my family? And he kept doing that for months. Every time the flowers would show up at the door, I'd be like, oh gosh. My mom would be like, you have flowers. So yeah, that's yeah, that's how we met in person and how we started dating and the week after.
Now here we are.
And now here we are, a whole year and a month later.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday was
Yeah,
our
yesterday was our 13
13-month
months.
anniversary.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been an interesting adventure. I don't like Oh, okay, a couple of other things. So, of course at some point I told my mom, and then a little later on I told my dad. Like this was probably around like Friday. So it had been a couple of days. And, you know, my dad's an interesting human being. Like you have to meet him to just like grasp who he is and how he is. But I could never guess how my dad was gonna like react when I got a boyfriend because I am like I'm the oldest child. My sister. Honestly, we made a bet at some point who was gonna get a boyfriend first, and I was honestly betting on her because it just didn't seem like it was happening for me. But yeah, I just couldn't anticipate how my dad was going to react. And so I call him and I'm like, hi, like, I have a boyfriend. And he was like, a real one? And I was like, yes, a real one. You think I have like an internet boyfriend or like a robot boyfriend? Like, what were you thinking?
Chat GPT.
Yeah, exactly. I am dating Chat GBT. He's my one true love. Like, I don't know. It was just really funny. And it took a long time. Like, I had to get my parents warmed up to the idea of Hank existing. And he met my mom and sister in person for the first time, like 6 months in. And he didn't meet my dad until like 9 months in. And the good thing was I had done such a good job prepping them for it that like by the time that they got to meet him, like they were all really comfortable with his existence, and it wasn't weird anymore that like I had a boy. It wasn't like is he real? Like, are we looking at a real person or a wax figure? Like, yeah. So yeah, it's been a wild ride. But wait, I forgot. I also wanted to say, I it's funny because when we got into the relationship, it's like, you know, you get into a relationship, you never know how long it's gonna last. Like, you can hope for something or you can like try and anticipate something, but like you just never know. And I was just so dead set on the fact that we were going to make it to a year because my dad, the other thing he said was he doesn't believe, he doesn't take relationships seriously. Like he doesn't think it's a serious relationship until you've made it to a year. And after that, I was like, I have to prove to him that this is a serious relationship, that I'm capable of that. So throughout all the ups and downs, there were a couple of different things that motivated me. It was that and a couple of other things. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are, laying on my couch. Also, we could have never anticipated this either.
No.
Who would have thought I'd have my own apartment and you'd be,
Just here hanging out.
yeah, squatting in my apartment for months. Yeah. So it's been a wild ride, and now we have a podcast together too. Like it's kind of like a baby, you know.
It is.
Like
our
it's like a
little
responsibility, you know. Now I'm like, we can't break up because like podcast.
You can't do it for the baby.
Yeah, exactly. The baby needs to grow up with his father. But yeah. Anyways, that's us. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
I hope
If you
you-
haven't already, go watch part 2 or listen to part 2.
Part 1.
Part
This is
1.
part
Go
2.
listen to part 1.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go listen to part 1. Oh, we should have recommended that at the beginning. This is part 2 to the story of how we met, specifically us meeting in person and then us dating. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, do that first and then come back. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.